Those are actually pretty nice. I like really thin mouse pads.
Yeah.
I hate it when they're thick. It like feels weird. So, all right.
I just find it weird that people still use mouse pads. I know. Hey, see, can I have access? So I don't
have it.
Yeah.
I've been using them my whole life, so.
That's about it. What's wrong with those? No. Is that the shiny hologram?
Alright, that looks good, right?
Going on to infinity. To infinity and beyond. I knew somebody was going to say that. Scream. Yes, that's better.
Okay. So, bunch of things to talk about today. Exams were graded. I was so mad at Google.
I was so mad.
I made it out of 105 points, and then I just wanted to say the max is 100. I think that would be easy, right?
Yeah.
Canvas, the other system I use at the school, you can do that. It's so easy. It does not let you do that. If you can set the max as 100, but it will scale everybody's scores down appropriately. So if anyone looked at it when I was entering for about 2 hours when I was messing with it, like,
I know, I saw it.
you had a higher score on like the actual test, but then on your midterm, like total, it was lower.
I was actually kind of sitting there watching.
It was, I was so pissed about it. It was,
creepy like people on their computers.
Hey. and I Googled all over. This is just like an ongoing thing for like 5 or 6 years of people complaining about Google not being able to do this. And then I found all these hacks. None of them were satisfactory. And then finally, there's only 10 of you. I just went in and overrode and hand entered the grades for the whole category, you know, so yeah, overridden. So you had a chance at 5 extra credit points just because it was out of 105. I bumped everybody's grade 5 percentage points. That gave, I was gonna run statistics. Let's see if I can without like exposing everyone's grade.
Yeah, it's gonna be on. I was gonna say we can freeze the percent.
Yeah, except what's on this is gonna be on there.
Well, that's great. Yeah. Yeah. It's not.
Okay, it doesn't show anything. I didn't think it did. But. So, average grade 79.4, but I added 5 to all of those, right? So this is what it was based on the initial. The median was 85. 3 people with the 5 points got 100, and I didn't go over 100, but 3 people got 100. So for the median, that's why the median is drug a little higher, because 3 people had pretty high 90s. Standard deviation. So questions, yeah, because his crashed in the middle, or battery died, I didn't do the setting to auto submit it when the time limit's up. So his is like hanging in the status where I can't submit it. And I tried to make it so he could. We're gonna figure it out afterwards, because I don't want to hand grade all multiple choice. So the red ones in here are the ones that were generally like missed more. I mean, can you guys see everything now? Like when you go to your quiz or your exam? I don't really want to go through this in particular, but if you can't, it's because I still need to get Aaron's stuff in. Once I do, you'll be able to see all the answers and stuff, so you can see where you went wrong. There was a couple questions. Let's see if I can. The one that the answer was a level 0 diagram was pretty missed. here we go. A data flow diagram that represents a system's major processes, data flows, and data stores at a high level of detail. That was a level 0 diagram. Actually, I guess 7 people got it right. So, each of the following are true except for well, I assume that's the correct answer, right? It doesn't mark on here which one was correct. Form contig, that's not. Yeah, so that one was pretty spread around. Bringing all the modules together that comprise a program for testing purposes. That's integration testing. What is it? System testing. That's kind of purpose of acceptance testing. Determine if the system meets user requirements. So always about the user. So I'll make sure you can see all the answers. The short answer stuff was pretty good. I mean, this is giving some other weird indexes, but I graded pretty loose on the short answer since the multiple choice were kind of harder enough to bring the scores down. So I think everyone did pretty good on those. The exam served its purpose. We need to take an exam at some point, so that's it. Will be your presentation on your project. So today we're going to talk about Scrum. I've made the decision that we're going to use Scrum as our project management technique. I want to use Gantt charts and all the old school stuff that we spent all that time learning about. So this will be a good contrast to like the traditional way, and it'll be something that makes way more sense for a one-person team. In the past, they had them do like budget estimates and all these things. I don't really think that's worth our time. I mean, you might do that on a project, but you're probably going to have a business person working with you, right? I mean, so I think we're better off doing a little more modern approach. So I'm going to go through a Scrum introduction Prezi, not one I made, but one I found. I looked at a bunch that was pretty good. I'm going to scan through a couple of these articles. I also posted a video, Intro to Agile Scrum, in 10 minutes. And then we'll go into the homework. We might get done a little early. I'm kind of dragged down Phil to the best. I've made the decision to go with Taiga as our software. Do you have Taiga? I looked at a bunch of them and people's descriptions. The reason I decided to go with Taiga is because it best supports Scrum. A lot of the other ones like Trello and Zoho, you kind of have to work around to get Scrum to work in there. They're not designed around Scrum. Taiga is specifically designed around Scrum or Kanban. I also like it. It's very simple. It's not as old of a project or as a software. So like the Zoho is awesome, but they have so much stuff in there. It's kind of overwhelming. Taiga is pretty straightforward. So I'll go through and show you that, and that's kind of your first homework assignment will be creating your Taiga account and putting some stuff. So I made it due Thursday at midnight, but it's not long. It should take like an hour to sit down and just bang it out. I just want to start doing more on short deadlines so that we're kind of just pushing along. So let's talk about Scrum a little bit. So, you guys ever use Prezi for presentations? It's really popular in the School of Ed because it looks fancy and things spin around. I don't know. It's just, I never really was that impressed with it, but once someone sees it in the School of Ed, they're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. And then they do it, everybody starts using it.
What you're saying, people in the School of Ed are basically very easily
yeah. Okay, so the traditional we've talked about was the waterfall, right? So design, plan, build, test, deploy from beginning to end. So you have a lengthy build phase. There's a lot of risk with that, both for distraction and scope creep. Scope creep means you start kind of shifting from what the requirements were, and the engineers working on it say, oh, it'd be really cool if we made it do this. And pretty soon you have all these extra things in it that weren't part of the requirements. It can also be that the stakeholders try to do that. You're working on, I always use the Windows example. Microsoft is working on it forever, and there's not really stakeholders, but things keep getting inserted throughout this long build portion in the middle. Oh, look at how pretty it is. We really stop upside down. This doesn't even make sense how this is like animated. I know. I don't know how I made it go upside down, but it's so project manager would be responsible for dividing work. It kind of makes me sick too. The idea is that you're trying to estimate and plan all the work before the project even starts. So that's where last semester they had to do a budget and a Gantt chart before they even started working and all this stuff. Like, it's old school to me. So what often happens is projects end up over budget, over time, and of low quality. That's like the standard thing in the industry is everything goes over budget. Have you ever heard about like a upcoming game or something they're done early, so they decide to make it better? No, it's like never, ever on time. So yeah, it's usually the other way around.
Yeah, limited features.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we'll fix it with Destiny 2.
Yeah. So you get disappointed customers. So it might match what was originally planned, but it's not what people want now. So what do we do about it? Scrum is one of the agile techniques. We talked about extreme programming last week. Kanban is the other popular one. Scrum, I think, is the easiest of the agile methodologies to implement, so that's kind of why I went with it. So Scrum, basically, we're not doing the engineering practices. And this was kind of straight from the book in that chapter on Agile. Those are more like engineering methods. Agile is less like engineering. So we don't plan all the tasks at the beginning. The project environment is changing. You can't know in advance what you need. If you try to plan it that specifically, it's probably going to fail. It's going to end up over budget and over time. So generally, Agile is done in small teams, and you make decisions at that team level. So the idea is you're more agile with it. You do work during time-boxed periods called sprints. So for your homework, you'll start creating what we call user stories, a backlog, and then what we'll do is I'll say, okay, you have a week. Pick the 4 of those things you think you can get done by next week. That's a sprint. Sprints are usually 1 to 2 weeks. So Scrum roles, product owner. So that's kind of who is representing they're the highest level. The Scrum Master, so we talked about that before, it was that guy that had the ball and chain stuff on the image you sent, I think. He was the Scrum Master. So the idea of the Scrum Master, people often think that it's more like a project manager. They're really managing like just the Scrum part. Like they're not telling individuals what to do. The idea is that they're removing impediments. If you're in a sprint and this needs to happen, the Scrum Master gets you the hardware, gets you the resources you need to do that. They're not really directly managing the people, they're managing the Scrum. And then you have your development team. So 4 to 9 members. You guys will be a 1-member team. I guess 2 if you count me. So Scrum team, Scrum project steps. So the idea is you sit down for a day and you plan a sprint. So the whole team decides on the functionality to be built for the next sprint. Based on the product owner kind of giving guidance and estimates of how much you think you can get done. So I will kind of I don't know, I guess sort of be the product owner along with you, and we'll kind of plan our sprints, not for 8 hours. But so inputs, so you're going to have a product backlog. This is what you'll work a little bit on for the next homework. That contains functionality, which we call stories, necessary for a finished product. That is maintained and prioritized by the product owner. So an example, if you're making a website, a user story might be, as a user, I should be able to log in the system so that I can access my account. They're broken down like that. Then you take those out of the backlog and you put them in sprints, and you kind of subdivide those further into the tasks necessary to accomplish that user story. So as you create this backlog, you give estimations of the work. Now, it's kind of a debated thing. Do you estimate it? I think it'll take this many hours. They moved away from the hours, and you use a scale. The way Taiga is, it's from 0 to 40. Just relative to other stories, how much time do you think it will take? You're not trying to quantify them in hours. You're just trying to say, well, this is easy, it's a 1. This is bigger, it's a 20. And you're just kind of scaling it that way. And then, so you have all those inputs, then you create your sprint based on pulling things from that backlog, the product backlog, based on priority. So your priority should be the base functionality first, and then the lesser functionality coming. So a sprint, max 30 days, usually 2 weeks is pretty standard. Your Scrum team decides what are they going to work on for the sprint, who's going to work on what. You don't change it in the middle of the sprint. That was done in the plan. You sprint to the end to get that done. But because there's going to be another sprint like 2 weeks later, you don't worry so much about it. I'm like, oh, we got to change course here. You finish that sprint, and then you kind of do it again. Daily, you have a Scrum kind of either at the end of the day or sometimes in the morning. The team meets. Usually, I guess in this case, it would make sense in the morning. They say what they did the previous day, what they're going to do that day, and if there's anything they need to help them. So I'm working on the login, but I need the database table for usernames. That way they can communicate to the team, and whoever's in charge of that can kind of take care of that. You often see these called as stand-ups. And the idea is that you stand up, you give your deal, and then you sit down. By making people stand up, they usually talk pretty quick and transition to the next one. So, I mean, this process is trying to put times to it. We used to meet like in the morning in my software company and talk for like 2 or 3 hours about stuff. It's like I could never get anything done because it was an endless meeting. These short sprints and the way they're set up is designed to combat that by making everything move quicker. Okay, so input into, basically we're saying input into this daily Scrum is the sprint backlog, but you're going to update it as you go. As things get done, you mark them as done, and then you update the team what you're going to do that day. Sprint review, so at the end of a sprint, at an end of a 2-week to 1 month period, you demonstrate that functionality to the project owner, whoever else needs to know, and you get big feedback to help with the next sprint. Sprint record, retrospective, these are kind of the same thing, right? I guess the review is where they're demonstrating to the stakeholders. And then after that, the team on their own kind of has a retrospective of it. Now you can see even this, we're talking a day for planning, we're talking a day for ending, and we're losing time, but if it, the key is for it to be focused and productive. 3 hours and 4 hours, I hope you can cut those down as well. So here's just a view of a backlog. So story ABC has a priority of 1, so it's ranged from highest to lowest. Here they're estimating hours. Taiga uses, like I said, a scale, and there's been kind of a movement towards the scale as a better way to do it. So here they're saying, okay, take the top 3 on the backlog. That's going to be a sprint. It's going to take 150 man-hours to do. So if you have a team of 4 working 40 hours a week, you should be able to accomplish that sprint. The thing that I always told my business partner, and I don't think after 4 years he ever get it, he blamed everything on, well, you didn't get stuff done, you said you were in time. But I tell him I think this will take 60 hours, which would be like a week and a half of work. But when you have meetings for half of every day and you're only working on it 3 or 4 hours a day, so the idea here is you're trying to kind of include all that within it so it's more efficient. So here's the sprint, and then the daily scrum, and then the functionality completed. So as you work and you do scrums, you end up with this thing called a burn down chart. So it shows what you worked, what's left to do, and how many days it's estimated it'll take to finish everything. It kind of gives the scrum team a quick view of the sprint. So a burn down chart looks like this. Here's days 0 through 21. The orange is completed tasks. To go from here to here and get them done perfectly, the green is the ideal. The blue shows what the remaining tasks are versus the dark blue, which is the, I guess this is like teal. The dark blue is the remaining effort. And as you can see, kind of the crush kind of happens at the end. But Taiga has burn down charts, so we'll be able to see those as we go forward. So the idea, though, is at the end of every sprint, you have some new functionality that you can deploy. It's done, it's tested, it's documented, all of that is included, and it's ready to roll. If it's a web app, you can push it out. If it's a downloadable, you can push out an update. Scrum sprints deliver working implementations of the final project. So the idea is you can keep incrementally releasing instead of waiting till the end. So the 3 pillars of Scrum: transparency, inspection, adaptation. So transparency, whoever did this can't spell very well, but there's been a couple layers. Basically, the idea of transparency is everybody's involved with who works on what. It's less hierarchical. Tom, you do this. Damon, you do this. It's more, as a group, you decide that. Inspection, so everybody is involved with looking at that backlog and the burn down chart. There's not some secret list of future features that only one person knows about. Everybody's kind of involved. And then the big thing is it can adapt. So the product owner can make changes to the backlog to affect the next sprint. And then you're learning from those sprint reviews and retrospective. So when you start doing Scrum, you're not going to be very good at estimating timelines on different tasks. But using your burn down chart and the information you gathered, the idea is you take that and you get better. That's what we always said at Orbital Shift. Oh, you think we get better at estimating how long things will take. I think I did get better. It just didn't show because the meetings went up. And in hindsight, it would have been smart to actually track how much time I was actually working on things rather than just being at work. Then you'd get more accurate information. Some of the project management softwares have task time tracking. So you can say, I worked on this, and you kind of start a timer and you turn it off. Taiga doesn't have that, it's simpler, but there is some value in the time tracking. So that's kind of Scrum in a rundown. I'm not going to show you this video, but this would be kind of a good thing to watch. It's just 10 minutes and it goes through another perspective on Scrum. I also put 2 links in here on the Taiga site. One is User Stories Demystified. So this is basic explanation of what a user story is. So a user story, simply put, is a way to define a software feature from an end user perspective. So the common way is as a whatever type of user they are, and a lot of times it's just as a user, but it might be as a, in Orbital Shift, there was admin level for managers and regular employees. I want to be able to log into the site so that I can view my schedule. That would be a user story. It gives users, and actually this is not the description I put in the homework. I like this one a little bit better. I'm going to probably just change it right now. But there's different formats. I think the one I did was as a role I want so that benefit. I don't like that as much. And I was actually looking for this other one, and I couldn't remember where it was. So let me just check it out real quick. And it would be nice if I made it. Paste. It has plain text. As a N type of user, I want to be able to so that. Okay. So then they go into discussing user story points. They use a point system. So they're a way to estimate task size. So bigger, tougher tasks have higher points. And then it says once you are 2 to 3 sprints old, you can kind of look, was I accurate with the points I assigned to a task? Can I do it better the next time? So here they're assigning some points, 40, 45. So this is 3 user stories in sprint 1. This took 40 points. And they kind of calculate. So here they're talking about versus man hours using points. So generally they recommend points, et cetera, et cetera. There's a couple videos in here you can watch if you want a little more. And then I also put a link to creating a user story because you're going to have to do that on the homework. So let's take a look at Taiga and then the homework. So this is worth 50 points. It's due Thursday at midnight. I really don't think this will take very long. The reason I did this is I want to go over the next homework on Thursday so that we're just rolling right into it. If that presents a major problem, let me know through email or whatever, because I know sometimes you get slammed, but I just want to keep moving forward. So you're going to create an account on taiga.io. So this is free open source project management software. It's for Agile developers. It's won some awards and stuff. I think it's a pretty good tool. So you're going to create an account. I already created one. I think they released the software so you can install Taiga on your own servers if you want to run it internally on your business. And then they also have this cloud one. But I don't see any limitations to what you can do. Yeah, they like to use this Oompa Loompa thing. Oh, I did sign it. Never mind. That's why it's not working. Well, shoot. I use the LastPass, so I don't. Some of these, I probably have like a 20-character password for this. Yeah, it's like 9J pound, that kind of thing. Anyone use GitHub in here? I gotta figure out, because it can be a little overwhelming, but my thought is I think I'm gonna have you guys use it. It's made to put all your code in the cloud, so you have a backup of it, and then you can incrementally see every change that was ever made. The reason I would do that is, and I talked about it before, it's so much easier for me to help you if I'm added to your GitHub project, and I can just pull the code down, make some tweaks, and put it back. I just want to come up with a way that it's not, it's a pretty powerful thing. It can do a lot of stuff. I want to try to simplify it. You can also integrate it with Taiga, though I haven't yet tried that, to get some connection between tasks and what actually happened in the code. So, we already got one in here, huh? Who's that? So you're going to create a project in here. Create a new project. Let's see, can I add another one? Create project. And it's going to ask you if you want to do Kanban or Scrum. We're going to do Scrum. Kanban is basically with the task board. It's similar. I just think Scrum will work a little bit better for us. So you're going to do Scrum. And you're going to give it a name. But I prepared it. So easy, right? We already did have the project. You're going to add me as a project owner to your project. And I say it's under admin. So under admin over here, members, you're going to add a new member and you're going to add me. That way I can access everything. My thought is we will pretty much interact about the project through this. So then we're not passing stuff through Moodle and docs flying around. This will be a lot easier. So, yeah.
My last word right there. It's a lot easier.
You're going to create a wiki page inside your project. So down here, there's a wiki, and it has a page. I am stymied, though, if you can create more than one wiki page. How? Are you sure? I could not make it work. Save. It seems like there should be able to have more than one. But I'd like there to be more than one because then we can keep using this to add information. But for now, we're going to assume there's one, which seems weird to me. But you're going to create an entry and you're going to address the following. You're going to do an introduction to your project, 1 to 2 paragraphs. Potential problems and solutions. So things that you think might cause you to have trouble, like I've never made a database before, and how are you going to work around that? 1 to 2 paragraphs. What are you going to use to develop the project? Like, I'm going to use PHP and MySQL, I'm going to do this and this. Use Java and SQLite. So you got to have some idea what you're going to create it in. So, and then indicate what your experience level is using these technologies. So don't do, I'm going to use C and Oracle database and then say, I've never used either of them. Try to pick something that you have at least some experience in, and hopefully something that I have experience in so I can help you. Though I have experience in most things.
But then I don't know anything about any of this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so he's in charge of the project.
So Pascal's okay? I'd rather not Pascal. Java, any of the .NET languages would be great. C#, Visual Basic if you really want to. Python would be fine, would be good. Any web thing, PHP. I mean, if you want to do just a static HTML thing, but you're going to probably need to do some kind of server-side code to connect to a database. ASP.NET for you want to do something I've never done, that's fine too. I'll just try to figure it out. So that's the thing. I try to tell my high school kids this. They're not teaching you languages in computer science. They're teaching you like the theory of computer science, how you code, because then it's just syntax, right? It's just how do you do it in this particular language. I did a little bit of assembly language with my high school kids. So last bullet, feasibility. I said see page 90 in your book, but that's kind of where you're just saying, like, is it possible to do this in 20 weeks? Yeah, until May 13th or something, you know? Like, if it's not feasible, think can I do part of it? Like, if you have something you really want to do, but you don't think you can do it in 9 weeks, what part of it can you do in 9 weeks, and then you can work on it more later if you want. Tangible benefits and intangible benefits. Remember we talked about, and think of it as benefits to you or whoever might use your system. If it's something you're creating for yourself, if it's something you're creating to be used by other people, what are some of those benefits? You're going to create 5 user stories. This is getting a little more specific, and I'm doing this more just so you can see how it works. You're going to have many, many more. But you're going to come in under your backlog in here. You're going to add a new user story. And I told you to use the format as I want to be able to, so I can, just do it more of a corporal shift. I want to be able to log into the system so that I can see my schedule. Sounds kind of basic, right? But then you'll break these down further into like, what do you need to do that? I need to have these database tables. I need to do this. I need to create the login page. So we'll break these down. Now the point system, the way Taiga is configured, they have these different categories. Is it front end or back end? Is it design or is it user experience? UX is user experience. I'm not super concerned. Back end would be like stuff at the server for a website or interacting with the database. Front end would be the UI. Design would be like a web company usually has somebody that's just doing the graphics and that part of it. That would be design. User experience, I mean, could kind of encompass these. I'm not super wrapped up into how you classify them, but you're going to give it a point. So this, I'd probably say this is a 20-point feature. I mean, you're just doing them relative. If you create 5 of them, the hardest one should have to be 20 or 40, and the easier one should be lesser. You give it a status. Is it new? Is it ready? Is it being worked on? Is it needing to be testing, or is it done? These are going to be new. Tag me, so you can do tags on these if you want to tag it as some certain area, so you can search them by tags. And then you can give a little more description here. Don't worry so much about the description. We'll work more on that later. You can also attach files. And then at the bottom, you can decide, is this a team requirement? Is it a client requirement? Is it blocked? So why is it blocked? Is it something you can't do because of something else? You have a dependency or something. So this would be a client requirement. And then create it. So you're going to end up having 5 user stories in here. You may throw these out. I just want you to get a feel for how it works. And then I said create one more user story. It's more of a task than a user story. It basically just says that I need to review your wiki. You're going to assign that task to me. You can take the task and you can assign who's working on it. You're going to assign it to me. Once I'm done, I'll mark that task as done. So then we can kind of see the interaction of those. So your task will be like, as a project owner, because I'll be an owner, I want to approve the project so that put your name in there. So I don't think this is going to take you writing this stuff will take you the longest. The Taiga part is like 10 minutes. But. So, I also graded homework 3. We didn't talk about that, right? I got grades in there. You guys can see those. The midterm and homework 3. No? I think everything's graded. All caught up. So, just to kind of refresh how the syllabus is set up for the grading on this, just so you're not confused. 50% is projects, homeworks, quizzes, presentations. I doubt we're going to do any quizzes or presentations other than the final presentation. But the projects and the homework. So this is homework 4, homework 5. I'll keep having them. They're going to be the project, but they're kind of fitting into this 50%. The end 30% will be like your culmination of your whole project, presentation you do to the class. That together is the 30%, and then the midterm was 20. Wasn't a huge portion. So right now, when you look at your grades, you don't have any of this, so it's basically just kind of scaling in these two. So these will be diluted once we have the final prototype. That kind of makes sense. The homework things for the project will be more like create Taiga. It'll probably be create GitHub, do this, kind of those incremental things. And at some point, those will kind of peter out because it'll all be going towards this system prototype. So, can you assign them? I don't know. Can you assign? I just assumed you could, but I didn't actually. That's one thing I did not do. Did you add me to your project? Why do you get a Cervantes? Oh, you edited it. These are like badges they have, Backlog. It's probably because we haven't created the sprint. The backlog is not assigned. So let me edit this. I totally botched that. The backlog is just things to be done. Until they're assigned to a sprint, they're not assigned to something. So let's modify this a little bit to say that you're going to create a user story and a sprint. And inside the sprint, you're going to assign that to me. And that sprint will be like 1 day long or something, really short because it's just not going to review it. So good catch on that because I didn't really think that through all the way. Backlog is just things to be created. So let's say add this user story to a sprint. Make it short. 2 days. Sign. Okay. Does that work? Try it. Try it. New sprint. Wiki evaluation. Starts today. We'll say it ends Friday. We're going to drop. Wait, I'm creating this in yours. Who worked for you? I've already got one. So assign, boom, there it works. So you can assign that to me, but that's not the one you want to assign to me. So I think you'll find there's just not that much to this software, which makes it pretty easy to use. Basically, I mean, you have a search page, you have a timeline, which is just kind of everything that's been happening on the project. You have your backlog page. You have issues, which is like bug tracking. Like once we start having real features, we can say like errors when the user does this. We can track bugs in here. The wiki page, who's on your team, and then basically just admin stuff for doing some configuration. But it's compared to some of the other ones, it's very, very easy. So that'll be good. All right, so I think that's all I have to say. And this is probably the pattern that'll happen. A lot of times I won't even talk this much. I'll lecture some, tell you what the status is, and then we'll kind of do mini like daily scrums. After I'm done lecturing or whatever, I'll come talk to all of you, get feedback, help you out, and I'll stay till the end if everybody stays. So the only thing that I'm not as impressed with Taiga is for document management and stuff. It's pretty limited. Some of the others have really good collaboration and sharing things, but on the flip side, you can just use a Google Drive or something, right? So I don't really think we're going to need to share a lot of documents. And you can share them in the wiki too, so. All right. Let's see, I will shut down this.